I started working as my own business during COVID. So I was 21.
Is that what drove you to that?
No and yes. I started working at 16. So 16, instantly jumped into work, didn't even think about it. Just, wanted to make the money. Wanted to be able to buy my own things, not worry about, because we struggled a little bit growing up. We had that struggle. So
you were aware of it as a child? Like
I was always aware.
You understood that we don't have the money sometimes that we want to have.
Yeah. So I always understood that. I always tried never to ask for money growing up. I was always kind of like, let me figure out what I can do to make my money. So like I said, once I hit 16, I worked that way. I wouldn't have to worry about asking my parents for money. And, I know they had their bills. I know they had to pay vehicles, gas, all that crazy stuff. So I started working at 16. Every single time that during high school that we had breaks, spring break, summer break, never took a day off. I would just start working. I would tell them, hey, I got spring break coming up, let me work. So I would never take a day off, in all honesty, growing up.
And were you socking away the money, or were you saying, hey, I'm seeing other kids going and playing and buying cars and stuff, so I'm saving for that, or I'm just spending it?
I always wanted to just kind of spend my own money. I never liked taking money. I never liked borrowing money. I hate it. But that's just the way I was always showing, like, be grateful for everything. And I am, sometimes it sucked. Like, there's times, like I said, work during the spring breaks and all that. I would see people going out and having fun. And I wish I could do that too. But at the end of the day, I'm like, who's going to pay that for me? I don't want my mom paying that for me. I don't want my dad paying that for me. They work hard for their money. Let me work for mine. And that's one thing that my family always told me. They're like, we're grateful that you're like that. You enjoy working. You don't enjoy just kind of sitting back and not doing anything. They're like, we like that about you, because you can tell that you're dedicated to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
17 came, that was the hardest year for work and school for me. In school, I would be doing sistos, working out, doing all that crazy sport activities. I was always pretty athletic and fit growing up.
Well, and that's like a job in and of itself. If you think about the time commitment and just the physical commitment to that.
Dude, every single day after school, I would go play soccer. I played on a team starting at 13, 14. I played on a team with 18-year-olds and up. Every Wednesday, Sunday, and Tuesdays. Every other day, what would you expect? Practice.
Yeah.
So I would just do that.
And somehow fit in the job around that?
Yeah, so once 17 came, like I was saying, it was the hardest one. I was working at Denny's. I was working in a restaurant. Obviously, as a minor, you're not supposed to work excessive amount of hours. You're a part-timer, That wasn't the case for me. I was working from 4 to 4 every single day. So 7 to 2, 7 to 2:30, going to school. Right after school, I would go straight to work. Every single day, I always hoped during that year, maybe I'll get a Saturday, Sunday off. Maybe there'll be a little, no. They'd put me midday on a Saturday and Sunday, not even give me a day off. So, at point came where I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm like, prom came around, I was a senior. It was junior year. Prom came around, and I realized that at that time, I'm like, hey, I need these days off. Oh, well, you can't take them. Like, why not? Oh, well, we need you, this and that's Mother's Day weekend. I'm like, so what? I was like, dude, I've done so many favors for you guys, but you can't do this one favor for me. They're like, no, well, you're not getting the days off. I'm like, well, pay me all the money I spent on the tickets for prom, all the tux stuff, the hotel, everything I got. He's like, what do you mean? GM just looked at me like, it wasn't expecting my response. And after that, he's like, no, you know what? I'll give you the days, but you can't be doing that. Like, I'm like, no, I don't. What do you mean? I was like, it's a school-related event. You can't deny that. I grew up, like I said, working, so I learned a lot of different standards and work areas where, unfortunately, a lot of jobs take more advantage of the younger workers, because they don't know so much when it comes to rules and regulations. So they can just kind of shrug it off and, call it a day. And unfortunately, I mean, for me, it wasn't that case. I learned everything as I went.
Yeah.
This episode of Casita Conversations is brought to you by Tropics Collective. Tropics uses only the highest quality Delta-9 and THC ingredients to bring you the very best of what cannabis has to offer. It's Farm Bill compliant, which means it's legal in all 50 states for everyone. Give it a try today, and if you use our promo code, you'll save 15% on your entire first order. Go to tropicscollective.com and use the promo code CASITA to get your discount today. Tropics Collective is defining the art of cannabis.
You know?
So was that your first experience with the 9 to 5 and the corporate, you're working for a corporation that doesn't really give a shit about you?
That's where I learned all that, and I was just like, I hate corporate. Like I just never enjoyed it. I had fun. Don't get me wrong. I was making money. It came around when I quit. Everyone that would put in their 2 weeks, most jobs, they get mad. Hey, yeah, oh, okay, well, we don't need you anymore. So they'll put you like 2 days out of the week just to kind of, get ready to let you go. When it came to me putting in my 2 weeks, and I remember it clearly, they put me every single day of the week until my last day.
Just to squeeze the last juice.
And that's how it was. And that very last day, I remember it clearly, man. I was working. I was just tired. And management came. He's like, well, I need you to do all this and this and this. But what he didn't realize, I was already done with my shift. So he sent everyone home. Every single employee, he sent them home and left me alone by myself. I could have easily walked out, and I thought about it, but I was like, I'm gonna just finish my day. It's my last day. One of the graveyard shifts, because Denny's is 24 hours, came in, luckily a little earlier, and he wasn't letting her clock in for the same reason. He wanted to try to, push my time as much as possible. I went to the side with her, and I was like, hey, you want to do me a favor? She's like, what's up? I was like, you want to make some money right now off the clock? She's like, what? Like, take my tables. I was like, right now, you print out a receipt where you make your tips on card, and, obviously you get cash. I told her, I was like, take my tables. I was like, look, this is all that I have on card right now. Anything past that, it's all yours. All yours. All the tables, all the tips are yours. I was like, I just need your help for me to finish all this and just go home. She agreed. So, I finished everything. Management was, just, kind of laughing in the back, because he's like, oh, he's going to be here till like 1 a.m. and my time was 10. Came out. I was clocking out. He's like, why are you clocking out? You're not allowed to leave. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not allowed to leave? He's like, you're not done with your stuff. I was like, did you check? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, let's go check. And I showed him everything, all the side work, all the stuff. He's like, how did you have time to do this? You shouldn't have. And that's, in my head, I saw and I realized like he was just doing everything in his power to try to keep me there. And he's like, you didn't have the time for this. I was like, don't worry about if I had the time or not. Just know that I got it all done,
So you had to creatively think just to get out of that situation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way it was. And that I just got tired of it. And around that time, there was a lot of stuff going on at home too. I always separated work from home, but my sister was actually going through surgeries because she was constantly losing blood. Could never figure out what happened. Thankfully, she's okay. Everything came out okay. But, around that time, as a kid, you're like, that's my older sister. You're like, what's going to happen? So that came around. I left, started working at Wells Fargo. And that's when I started doing my detailing business on the side.
So when you went from the restaurant business to Wells Fargo, you knew you understood what corporate could do, and yet you still said, let me go to another corporation and let me see, kind of play in that realm. What drove you to just get another job in general? Because are you still 17 at this time, or are you 18?
I was 18.
Okay, so you turned 18, so now you can get a job about anywhere.
Yeah.
And you think maybe the banking industry is the place?
Yeah, so my sister was actually working at Wells Fargo.
Okay.
She is currently at Wells Fargo.
Okay.
We worked at different branches because we couldn't work together for conflict of interest and all that. But I was like, all right, because I did jump from the restaurant back to a car wash. So at 16, I started at a car wash, worked at a couple different car washes because they would throw me around. 17 came, worked at Denny's. Got out, so worked at the car wash for a little while, and what I kind of looked for something a little bit better. And they convinced me to like try Wells Fargo. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Why not? I did it. I disliked it only because of the sense that I don't like being seated for a long period of time. I need to be physically moving around. Like I grew up playing sports. I grew up moving. I grew up not even taking a day off. So, for me to just kind of be like on a computer all day, it's just terrible.
Drove you crazy.
Yeah. So that happened.
And so what made you, was there always this desire? Was it the being mistreated at a place like Denny's? Was it the sitting, being still for so long at Wells Fargo? What made you go, I got to do my own thing?
So like I said, I worked in multiple car washes at 16. So I learned all the different managements. I learned everything growing up there. So what told me to kind of do my own thing? I always grew up telling myself, I'm going to make the money. I'm going to do my own thing. So that way my family doesn't struggle anymore. Yeah, I was like, I struggled growing up. My family struggled a little bit growing up. For my future kids, I don't want that. Like, even for my family now, like even my parents, I don't want that. I want them to be able to stop working and just relax. They did all that for us. Why can't we do that for them? So
Either of your parents have their own business?
So actually it's just me and my dad currently working in my business.
Okay.
I brought him with me. I was like, let's do it. Cause he was working.
But had you seen someone else? My question is, at that point, had you seen someone else go out on their own? Because you could be financially stable going and work for somebody, right?
Yeah.
So financially, it makes sense that you go to Wells Fargo, but had you had an example of, if you do it on your own, you can be more financially free if you grind it and have the more freedom? Had you seen that played out in life before, or were you just kind of jumping off the edge going, I just know I don't want somebody telling me what to do or having me sit in a cubicle, so I got to try this?
It's kind of in between, kind of both. You can lean both ways. I've seen it in both aspects. I've seen it in the sense of like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life for someone. And the other sense, I'm like, I can have that freedom. I can be what I want to be. I can do what I want to do. If I get my employees, I can treat them the way they should be treated. I've always seen that aspect of everyone. Like I try to, because I've worked management positions. So I've always tried to be fair. I've always seen financially stable as far as like working Wells Fargo. I was getting paid every 2 weeks, bi-weekly pay. And I was doing that on the weekends, my detailing. That's when I started at 18. And I was like, if I know how to do this, why don't I just try to make some extra income so that way I can have a little bit more money, have more free money.
So at the time, you weren't thinking you're going to build this into your main thing. You're thinking, I'm going to do my job 9 to 5, and then I'm going to have a side gig.
Yeah. So, side gig, doing it on the weekends. And eventually I realized I'm making more on 2 weekends than what I'm making at Wells Fargo in 2 weeks. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why am I doing this? But at that time, I was still kind of building my money. So obviously, I ended up leaving Wells Fargo, not for the business yet. I ended up going back to the car wash for a bit for the same reason. Management, terrible management, I wasn't treated fairly, wasn't getting paid. It came to the point at Wells Fargo where it was like, I applied for a lead teller position because I was a teller at the time, and someone else applied, but they were all a friend group. So they gave that position to their friend. And what happened to me, they wanted me to train her for the position. And I'm like...
So you got a real taste of corporate America.
Yeah, right. So I'm like, I sat there, I'm like, you want me to get paid less than her, but want me to train her for all this other stuff that I already know how to do, when you can easily just give me the position and I can help, when all the other employees, all the other tellers as well, because we were really short-staffed. We didn't have any leads anymore. We just had one. But obviously they can't work every single day, especially in a bank. The regulations are a little bit more stricter in a bank versus a restaurant. And so everyone was telling me, they're like, well, why don't you give him the position? They've even told me you deserve the position. I was like, I didn't want to try it, but I was like, all right, I'll try it. Didn't get it. They wanted me to train the other lead teller now. And on top of that, all the new employees were making more than me, but I was still training the new employees because the lead teller didn't know what she was doing.
Do you ever look back and go, thank God that happened? Otherwise, I might still be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
In all honesty, yes. So like I said, I mean, I ended up leaving there for that reason, you know. Wells Fargo, as far as like a company, they did treat me good. It was just mainly management that caused me to leave.
But at this point, you had already identified that you could make more in 2 weekends than you did for 2 weeks there. But you didn't. Maybe did you need more money to really expand your business, or like what was it that caused you to not at that point say, I'm just going to quit this corporate world and I'm going to throw everything into my auto business?
So for me, it was fear. It was fear, and I wasn't like financially stable to go and do it at the same time. I could have done it, you know.
Yeah.
But it was more a little bit like fear on my end, just because I've never done it. You know, I didn't have any help whatsoever to do it. So when I left there, I went into construction, working gas piping, still doing that on the weekends. There was a point where I worked 3 months straight, no day off. Just work construction, came home, next day did detailing, and back to work. And eventually, you know, I was just like, I didn't enjoy doing construction. I personally didn't enjoy it until one day. That's when I was like, you know what? Like, I was like, I've learned from all these management positions. I've learned from all these employee positions. I've learned corporate. I've learned all this. I was like, I know what I'm doing when it comes to detailing. Why don't I just do it and make the money?
What killed the fear? I mean, you had that fear up until what point? Was it a certain dollar amount in the bank? Was it a certain realization that you were on this hamster wheel over here with construction and never, corporate American general, never going anywhere? What finally suppressed that fear enough that you could say, I'm done, I'm going all in on myself?
Like you said, it's just, you know, corporate America, all that craziness. It's like, why am I, like, I came to that realization where it just wasn't worth it. And I always told myself, why am I gonna work for someone else? And like you said, the realization part, I realized, why am I gonna work for someone else? Why am I gonna do this, make them the money, when I know I can do the money by myself? I can make all that money by myself and pay myself, and obviously my business when it came to it, versus making that money for someone else and losing it, you know?
And how old were you when you had this?
When that
realization?
happened, 2021. I was like 20 or 21. I'm currently 23. So
It's still pretty young age to make that realization and say, I'm just going to do it.
yeah, so I did that at 20, 21. That's when I made the business. Like I told Hassan, I had quite a few $1,000s in my savings. Took it all out. I bought my trailer. I did everything, and I just threw it all in there.
What's it cost? I mean, you drained your savings. What does it cost to start this business?
So around that time, because I was paying, obviously I had my bills. I was paying, I think, $1,200, $1,300 in a car that I bought a month.
You went all in on that bad boy, huh?
I went all in on that bad boy.
Wow.
Yeah,
It was a hell of a car.
It was my dream car, and I snatched it.
Yeah.
So I was the first one I found, and I was like, I'm snatching this, and it was a steal. You know, it came out to $12K, but those payments just were kind of killing me. The insurance and then the payments. You know, it was a 2-year payment thing going on, but you know, all of that was just crazy. And I think it came out to from like $8,000 for the trailer, because I built everything. I built my trailer. I bought my material. I bought everything that I needed. As far as chemicals and, you know, all that crazy stuff, I already had it because I was doing it on the weekends.
Okay.
So I didn't have to worry too much
So you
about.
built up a little bit of inventory.
Yeah.
And then you got to go lay $8-10 grand, something like that, out, drain your savings account, and go, I'm going to go all in.
So yeah. So what ended up happening, you know, I started at zero. You know, I felt like if I was back at 16, starting at $0, not having anything, you know, and my fear
and no
was
paycheck coming in,
no
right?
paycheck, exactly, just word of mouth. From
So what was the
people.
time frame when? So at that time, just trying to get in your head a little bit, going, I've got what's the number? 30 days. I've got 40 days before I can't pay my bills. Like, what was? You had that probably marker on you.
Yeah. So I was still doing a small like side thing, you know, selling what I could on the side. You know, I kind of gave up my personal life to kind of try to help sustain what I could.
Selling. What do you mean selling?
Just kind of stuff like personal items that I just didn't need anymore.
Oh, okay.
Offer up
Okay.
and all that crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
So you're doing what you can to make.
To make a little bit of income.
Yeah.
And you know, any check I got from when I started, all of it just kind of went into bills. I was just eating what I could at home. Like I was just barely like, I only put a limit to like $50 per week for myself to even have anything.
To anything.
Yeah, and that's $50, gas, food, everything. You know, that's how it was for a while. I started in 2021 with the business mainly. I was 20 or 21. I don't remember exactly what age, but I was 2021 when I started the business. COVID was hitting. You know, it was hard. COVID was hitting, and I started during the holiday season. So you can already imagine how difficult it was for those few months. We started, I think, in October.
And you had been doing this a little bit. So you had some clients already.
Very few.
How'd you get the first one?
Friends.
Just friends and referrals.
Yeah, just kind of tried throwing it out there, tried doing what I could to kind of pull in a little bit. There was a point where I only had one detail a month, you know, when I barely started. There was a point where I wanted to just cry and throw the towel.
An oh shit moment where you went, what am I doing?
Yeah, it killed me inside because I was like, I don't want to be a failure. I was like, you know, growing up, I've been told like, oh, you're never going to amount to anything. You know, it's just crazy stuff that people tell you. You know, it gets in your head.
Yeah. Were those people that are telling you that at a level where now you look back and go, now I see why they were telling me that, because they never got to this level. And so they didn't want me to get to that level, because otherwise they wouldn't have me to be their buddy at, you know, down below in the basement anymore, because I'm up on the top shelf.
Yeah, that's for me. It was a kind of like they don't want to see me progress because unfortunately
because they weren't progressing.
Yeah, unfortunately, what it is for a lot of aspects is just mainly jealousy.
Sure.
You know, you see jealousy everywhere. Like, you can't have anything because people just, you know, you get a new car, you go down the road, someone gets jealous and they key your car just because it's, you know, just because they can't have it. So, you know, I've always been told that. And that's when I was like, you know, I was like, nah, and that's what would hit me when I wanted to throw the towel. I'm like, I want to throw this towel so bad and just call it quits. But I remembered all that. I remembered always being told like, no, you won't do it. You can't do it. And that's what pushed me to keep on going. So I'm grateful that they told me all that. As much as it sucks, you know, like you're not going to hear someone tell you that. Like we're grateful for them being disrespectful and rude like that. Like, yeah, no, I mean, it's not right. But I'm grateful just in the sense because it helped me progress my business.
It's a negative motivation. You said that the last thing I want to do is make them right.
Yeah. So I kept on pushing, and now, you know, I'm still building. Did I make back all that money yet? No, I'm making profit. Yes. First year of taxes, you know, even the one that helps me do my taxes, she told me, she's like, you're most likely not going to see any revenue come in the first year. She's like, it's normal. It happens. Every business has it. And I went back and she was like, I can't believe that you have some revenue back. Like I wasn't expecting. She's like, I'm not being rude or anything, but it's, you know, you rarely see that. You don't see that too often. And I'm like, no, I was like, well, I just pushed. I was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm a push. Like I hate.
What's that mean when you say that? So you went from one a month to what you're doing now. How did you get there? What was the bridge? How did you push? Because people that listen are going to go, well, I want to do that too. And you're saying you've given this pathway, which is not an easy pathway, right? And it's not supposed to be successful. But then also you get a little bit of success where you know you can do it, but now you have to go to that next level. Yeah. Now you have to push. But what does that mean to you? When you say you were pushing, what were you doing?
Just not giving up, you know. I sacrificed a little bit of my social life. I sacrificed not going out, you know. Like I said, at 16, 17.
You're kind of doing what you were doing back at 16 or 17.
Yeah, you know, I gave all that up. You know, I was playing sports. I cut back on that. I cut back on everything, day and night. I would just sit there and, you know, go on social media, try to promote, go word of mouth, let people know. Anyone I talk to, you know, like if we were having a normal conversation like right now, I'll be like, hey, I do detailing, you know, kind of swivel it in there a little bit.
How does that, so what you do as your business and then the actual marketing and sales of that business, sometimes they're two very different things. I talk to a lot of people that are very good at what they do, but when it comes to getting out and trying to find the clients, they're not very good at that.
Yeah.
So how did you translate that and go, I'm just going to have to get out and talk about this? Was that natural for you, or did you just kind of force yourself into that?
It was more natural. I've always been talkative growing up, so I've always learned how to communicate with people. I was always out and about, making friends, talking to people. So I didn't struggle too much on kind of getting out there a little bit. As far as social media wise, promoting myself, it was difficult just because I was never like fully into social media in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna be posting every day, so that's where I struggled. Social media is where I struggled because I was the kid that was always out playing sports versus being on my phone. So I never learned all the different things I could do on social media, and I had to teach myself that. So like I said, when I pushed, I did everything I could in my power to make sure I brought that income in, because like I said, it's me and my dad. I'm not just bringing in the income for me, I'm bringing the income for my dad. He has his money on the side still, obviously he has his savings, he has whatnot. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want him to touch that. I want him to save that for an emergency, for whatever he needs it for. So that's where I was like, I need to, put those batteries in, change them out, do whatever I got to do, and keep on pushing to pull people in, pull clientele in, and do what I got to do.
And are you getting, or did you get to that next point where you've got a flow of business from learning social media, from that type of marketing? Did you get it from referrals? Is it a combination? Where do you find that the growth came from?
Crazy enough, it's more referrals.
Yeah.
90 to 93%, to be honest with you, is referrals.
And why?
Quality of work. That's all it takes. You want to do a job, the more important thing, is be trusting to your clients, and, as far as that, just be trusting, have good quality, don't try to rush your work. You rush your work. I can rush my work and go to the next job, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna be missing so many things in a car, and they're gonna be like, hey, what's going on? But that's what I get told all the time from my clients. They're like, hey, you do such a great job. They're like, you don't, they're like, obviously everyone's gonna miss something here and there, but as far as that, they're like, you do a great job every time. And I tell them the same thing. I treat it like if it was my own. I'm gonna take care of that. Like, you go to a car wash now, they're gonna tell you, hey, yeah, this will come out. Let's say you want to paint correct your vehicle. There's a big spot where it's like the clear coat's already filled completely, and there's no saving it. They'll tell you, yes, I can save it, and they'll charge you a hefty amount, but they won't do it. They'll just kind of slap it on there, slap a wax on there, and say, oh yeah, it's good, and then a couple weeks later, it's white, because the clear coat's already gone. And for me, I mean, it's not about that. Obviously, making the money is important, but for me, it's not completely about the money. It's about the quality.
Yeah.
I care more about that. I've had people tell me, hey, can you paint correct my vehicle, this and that? It has scratches, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. I'll look at it, and I'm like, I see one little scratch, and I'm like, dude, I was like, in all honesty, you don't need it. You don't need a paint correction. And I can charge you for it. If you really want that, I'll do it. Don't get me wrong. But I'll give them the other option, even if it's a cheaper option. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not giving false expectations, and I'm doing what I can to make a loyal customer to me, and I'm giving them that customer experience they deserve.
Isn't that interesting? When you don't put money first, you make more money.
Yeah, and that's always been the crazy thing. But that's the way I am. Like, I'd rather lose out on 200 and give the customer a satisfied feeling, knowing they didn't have to spend that money, versus just making that money, taking it, and then being upset a couple weeks later
and never seeing them again, potentially.
Exactly. I had a customer actually tell me once, hey, can you restore my headlights? Pulled up, saw it, and they were oxidized. They were yellow. You couldn't even see the actual lighting in there or anything. And I'm like, okay. I was like, we can do it. all right. I was like, let me try it out. I was like, if I do it, I'll charge you for it. If I see that I can't do it, I'm not going to charge you. I'll just charge you what I did on the wash, and that's it. I won't add that on. Customer came out, saw the headlights. Dude, you saved me a couple hundreds of dollars with just the headlights because they came out clear, crystal clear. He's like, I was thinking about buying them because I didn't think they were gonna restore. And I told him, I was like, no, I saw them. I saw them, and I told you I'd give it a shot, but only for the reason being, the only reason I will tell you that is because I don't want to give you those false expectations. But at the end of the day, as long as I'm making that effort to do what I can to fix it for them or clear them out, that's what matters. So and it came out the way I expected.
Under promising, over delivering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I set those expectations with all my customers. I'm the same way. I'll tell them, like, don't expect it. It's like, I'll do what I can. And honestly, at the end of the day, that's what's getting me my clientele because of quality.
Do you ever go through a month where the revenue or the amount of jobs is the same as the last month, or it's been that way for a few months now, and you're on a growth path, so maybe not, but you ever look at a month and go, oh shit, I'm not growing this month, or I have less details than I did last month, and get anxious? Or do you have a system to cope with that where you break through and go, okay, I know what I have to do, or I'm going to go push harder in my marketing? Or when you feel like you've hit a wall a little bit, what is your first instinct?
So I always look at it like you were saying, growth. I always look at that, like, how are my weeks going? Obviously, you're going to hit that wall because you're still growing. You're going to hit that wall where you said you feel like you're not making anything. It's staying steady. And it did happen to me. And at times it does still feel a little steady. But when I feel that way, if I see that, like, oh, I feel like I'm not making enough this month, or I'm not, doing enough details, I'll just kind of look at it and I'm like, what? I was like, I'm going to take this day, which is my day off. Let's say Sunday. Sunday's my day off.
So you're still working 6 days a week?
Yeah. So Sunday, Mondays are my days off, but Sunday is for family, because you always got to make time for family, no matter what. And that's what I saw during corporate. I saw you always got to make time for family because, like I said, with my sister, you never know. So that's Sunday. I left it for family. Monday is my day off, but I use it to set up my trailer for the weeks. So it's essentially
not really a day off.
Yeah. Essentially it's not my day off. It's my day off from work, but it's not my day
from
off
hard work.
Yeah, it's not my day off from, setting up my trailer, buying material, doing all this crazy stuff. But when that happens, I'll sit down on a Sunday in the morning or afternoon, it only takes a couple hours. Try to market and push what you can to get a little more, oh yeah, well, let me message him, let me call him up, and that's what I'll do. Like,
customers in the past, you're texting or calling, hey, are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready if you are.
At first, when I was still building and I hit those walls, obviously my first, my main first year, when I was starting to build a little bit more like clientele, when I felt like I was completely stuck, I'd throw in a deal for all my regulars. Like, hey, like, I'll message my regulars, hey, this and that, like, I'll do a wax for this, or if you want, I can do this, and I'll kind of make a deal for them, so that way I can just reel them back in. That way I know I'll have some income, and it worked. It worked because one, I'm giving back to them, but I'm still making that income. Am I losing a little bit for giving out a deal? Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're gonna go out and recommend me to someone else and say, hey, like, he gave me a good deal, it was a deal, but message him, he does a good job, because then they see, okay, let's say I was just doing a maintenance clean, vacuum, dust down, just the basic cleaning. But then they wanted the shampoo, and I gave them the deal on the shampoo. They see the inside, they're like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting it like that. And from that one experience, they'll go and recommend me to someone else, and I can actually get the full price on that.
Totally. Guerrilla Marketing 101, you're doing it, right?
Yeah. So
what's it like working with your dad?
After
all that time, you growing up, you've seen his path. He started to see your path. he's got to be ultimately proud of you, like incredibly proud of you.
Yeah.
But what's it like working with him?
It's a little difficult at times. I'm grateful that it's him backing me up, only because, you know, it's your dad. You know, he, like you said, he likes to see his kids grow and progress. And, you know, I have him there with me, and I treat him as amazing as I can. You know, like I said, learning in corporate how management is, I don't like being that manager. I hate being that manager where it's like, you know, and I'll tell him, and I've told him when we barely started, I'm going to give you respect. I'm going to treat you right. Don't get me wrong. Like, you're my dad. You know, I'm never going to disrespect you. I was like, but one thing is when it comes to work, you're pretty much my employee. You're my right hand. There's going to be times where I'm going to yell at you and I'm going to talk to you a little bit rude, and it's going to sound disrespectful, but it's not me trying to be disrespectful. It's just me making sure that we're doing what we got to do to push forward and do the jobs right. And like I said, it does get a little difficult because obviously, you know, working with family is never easy. There's always snapping back and forth. But at the end of the day, I mean, me and him managed to get through it. You know, I give him all the respect at home. I give him respect at work. And there are times where I've yelled at him at work, not wanting to, but it's just in the sense of like, come on, man, like you gotta get this right. You can't mess this up.
Because you're pushing, right? You're always pushing, and he's lived his life and maybe pushed in his day.
Yeah.
And now you're pushing.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've told him. I was like, you know, I'll be the best manager you've got, but there's gonna be days where I'm gonna talk to you and I'm gonna tell you like, hey, like I'm gonna sound like I'm being an a-hole, but it's not me trying to be like that. It's just me making sure that the same quality is still being put versus, you know, me letting it slide. Like if I see something going on, because I've caught a couple things going on where I kind of notice where he's kind of like, you know, you get comfortable. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets comfortable at one point. So when I catch it, I talk to him at first, and then I'll see him kind of still doing it, and I'm like, hey, like you need to stop doing that. You know, we'll kind of go at it a little bit, but after that, he realizes like, okay, like I gotta.
You said everybody gets comfortable, but it doesn't sound like you ever get comfortable.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, so what is that?
I mean, for me, like I said, I never get comfortable because I don't know how to explain it. It's like for me, not being comfortable is what makes me comfortable, I guess you could say, because I know that I'm still putting out that same attitude, that same quality, that same like I need to get it done, you know.
What's the end game?
The end game,
because not being comfortable has its perks because it's always causing you to grow, right? But the end game is there a number? Is there a financial dollar in mind? Is there a standard of living in mind? Is there what it is when you get to this point? Name that point. You would say, okay, now I don't have to grind quite like I used to because I feel like I have done what I've set out to do, if that's even a concept.
So for me, as you know, knowing I own my own business, my point of where I stop, I don't see it. I just see myself constantly growing. You know, as a way of living, I want to reach a point where, you know, I don't want to grow in the sense of like state to state, you know, like big companies like that. No, I want to grow my local business to become one of the known ones in the state, most trusted. You know, it's better having one good business versus many different locations, not being able to be there to check them out when you need to. So I want to build that one, you know, have a good living life, give my family when I get into it, you know, a good life where they can kind of relax, but at the same time, you know, I don't see myself kind of relaxing too much in the sense of like giving up, like, oh, I'm not going to work anymore. You know, I'm going to let all these people do it for me. Mm. Do I wish to have that in the future, people working for me and me kind of stepping aside a little bit? Yes. But at the end of the day, you know, I've always grown up helping people. So even if I'm an owner, you know, I don't care if I'm an owner and I shouldn't be doing it. You know, as people see it, you know, you're a business owner, you should get people to work for you, you know. I don't care if people are working for me. If I see that they need a hand, I'm gonna put that hand in. You know, I don't care. Like I want to be that role model to them that not every business and company is the same.
Yeah, that's going to go a long way for that build, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Well, it's super impressive what you put together. It sounds like it's been a little bit of a hard journey, but the grind, I think, is what pays off for sure. And I can see that it's surrounded by your love of family, your upbringing, having to experience a little bit of that hardship you talk about, right? And that will continue to drive you to something great.
yeah, and I hope to reach it. You know, I mean, right now, like I said, I'm kind of still in that building state, but you know, a business is not gonna take.
No
off
one's
in
gonna
one
hand it
day.
to you.
Yeah, and you know, starting at zero, you know, it's gonna take a little longer, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's what's gonna pay off in the end. You know, eventually, it's not gonna be for me. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my future kids.
Yeah.
You know, I want them to experience a good life. So
And even today, I feel like you're doing it for something outside of you, for your family. I mean, you've got your dad working with you. You can do things that maybe you weren't able to do growing up, or that you saw they weren't able to do growing up. If you keep building this now, I mean, I think you've got that piece that sits on your shoulder, that family piece. That's super important.
yeah, and that's what I want. Like I said, for my parents, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything they did. So at one point, I hope to build it enough for them to not have to worry about working, you know, just relax. Like, you know, I got it.
Yeah.
You know, like even my dad, you know, my dad obviously is always going to be working with me. He's always going to be my right-hand man. So even like if I get up and I get management, you know, I'm going to let him handle some stuff too, you know, like I'm going to have you here with me, you know, we're going to be taking care of this. We're going to have our employees.
Keep them close. Keep family close.
But, you know, if you end up wanting to just stop, just let me know, and, you know, I'll take care of the rest from there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
If this was the last thing that your family heard you say, what would you tell them?
I do it all for them. All of it. For my current family and my future family.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, it's inspirational to hear where you've coming from and where you're headed.
yeah.
I think there's a bright path.
I hope so.
Yeah, dude.
I hope so, man.
Awesome. Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, of course.
I love
Thank you.
it.
Thank
All
you for
right.
having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, right on. Thanks, Kevin. So give your business name out. Let's get some clients coming your way.
So the best way to reach me is Instagram. Instagram, it's Kevins_auto.hookup. It's a detailing page. You'll see all my work on there. You know, whatever you want to see, all of them have a listing of what's been done to each vehicle. Another way to contact me is through my cell. It's at 602-466-4850. Preferably a text message, just because since I'm out on the field, obviously sometimes I can't answer. So, you know, with a text message, I can just get back to it when I can, you know, versus a call.
Yeah, awesome.
So that would be the best ways to reach me.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for coming. It's been awesome.
Thank you. I
All right,
appreciate
Kevin.
it.
All right.
Acrylic Financial Incorporated is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by those on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Acrylic Financial. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance, and some guests may have been paid a fee to be interviewed for this show.